Hi everyone, this is Kelly and I am here to take a look at my animal decks with you. I have another video where I've done this maybe a year ago. I'm very bad with time, so I feel like it's been a year. It may have been longer than a year. And it is something that I get asked a lot of. I get sent messages about my favorite animal decks and these kinds of things. And so I pulled out the decks that I have. I'm sure, as in with the other time I've done it, I think afterwards I was like, oh shoot, I had that deck, kind of over there in that space and I completely forgot about it. So there's a potential that there are a couple stray ones that I didn't ferret out of my various boxes where I keep things. But I think this is a pretty good chunk of them at least. So I have mostly animal oracle decks. I'm going to start with, I think, the tarot decks because I actually don't really have that many. The one I am missing, I'm definitely missing my Animal Totem Tarot. You know what? One second. Here it is. I was remembering because when I was looking for it, I found the bag that I used to keep it in had a different deck in it. And I was like, why do I have a different deck in there? I couldn't remember it. And it's because this was the deck that I was attempting to make a box out of that you can see is really wonky, although the deck is also wonky itself. But anyways, here it is. So this is the Animal Totem Tarot, which I actually like a lot. I have to remember to pull it out. I don't know, for some reason I have to say that I gravitate more, that's a pretty Rider-Waite-Smith Three of Swords, which is the 3 and 10 of Swords in animal tarots often just kind of break them for me because they're even more tragic than a Rider-Waite-Smith with humans in it. And it really just doesn't work well with the way that I see those particular numbers. I love the vulture here. But this is a really good, I do kind of wish there hadn't been any humans involved at all. I prefer if there's going to be an animal deck like this. Yeah, it's strength, but I would have preferred it just being the bull being strength, not the bull that's pulling something human. I love that Empress card. So that's one of my pet peeves with animal tarot decks. Like, I like it when they change the pips to be something that are more in alignment with animals, so that you don't have all animals, but then you have these human things such as swords and cups and things like that. It's kind of one of my pet peeves. It doesn't mean that I won't use them. I love this Queen of Swords. So it doesn't mean I won't use them, but it's just a little bit one of those little pet peeves that I have. Love this World card. I will say with this deck, I absolutely love the guidebook that comes with it. It's something that I often will refer to, especially for that World card. I really love it. I love the entry for that. I'm going to see who, is that a Barbara Moore? Nope. Lisa Robertson, but I'm a big fan of the guidebook for the Animal Totem Tarot. So that's a tarot deck. I've talked about before the Spirit Song Tarot. This to me, as I've said before, is absolutely stunning. I think that Pauline Cassidy did an amazing job at picking the animals. There's a very shamanic, animistic, earthy feeling, earthy path feeling behind the choices and why she chose the different animals. I also think that her keywords are really well. I just feel like many decks try and fail to blend oracle, something like an oracle deck of animals with the tarot system, and trying to combine the two very rarely works, in my opinion. This is one, a very few exception, where I feel like it's a perfect blend of an animal oracle deck and a tarot deck. Like, I think you could pull this card and not even these cards and not even pay attention to the tarot and just use it as an oracle deck, and it works beautifully. Or you could pull it as a tarot with the underlying oracle energy, and it works beautiful. So I don't find this to be an overly soft deck, even though it's in pastels. I find it to be very clear and very supportive, as you would think of with all of these wonderful animal energies here. Love this Four of Feathers. And what I also love is that, you know, she's changed. The swords are feathers and the cups are shells, right? So she's changed. So this doesn't have those human elements to an animal deck. And that to me is perfection. If you're going to go into an animal deck, like, just go into an animal deck and don't bring in those human elements is my favorite. And it doesn't mean that I don't have decks. I have a couple decks, as you can see, that I still enjoy that do that. It's just, again, a pet peeve. So this makes this, in my opinion, one of the most perfect blending of an animal and a tarot deck thus far. Would I have loved it to be bold, rich colors? Yeah, I would have, but it's beautiful and it works, and it's really a fantastic deck. So love this. Of course, I have to put the Wild Unknown. And some people go back and forth and they'll say this isn't actually like you wouldn't qualify this as an animal deck. There are certainly not animals on every single card. However, the court system is all animal based. There are no humans. This this does mix human elements like swords and cups and things of that nature with the animals, but I still think there's kind of a hard case to not be able to say. But see, like this, you've got human interaction, right, with animals in the most terrible of ways. But I still would consider this to be an animal-based deck. Because there are no humans, there are human elements, and it is very heavily animals. There's also plants and trees, but all of the major things where there would be people, there would be animals instead. Very difficult. That and that Ten of Swords, very difficult. While I love this, I would so love for there to be released, and this isn't even that bad. This I can live with, even though, again, human implements. But I would love this deck, the creator of this deck, Kim Kranz, to release a Nine of Swords, a Ten of Swords, and for me personally, the Eight of Cups, because I hate those broken cups, because I don't read the Eight of Cups that way. But I would love, but I can live with those. So the Nine and the Ten of Swords, I would love an alternate version for that. That would like be so amazing. But this is a deck I use. I have used it throughout many readings, many client readings, many personal readings. This is definitely a top favorite deck. It reads very powerfully. This is tattooed on the back of my leg with 2 crescent moons on either side, and no color. It's just a black tattoo. So I clearly love this deck. But so yeah, I would still consider this to be an animal deck, animal based at least, and I love it. My newest animal based tarot deck is the wonderful Naked Heart Tarot. Now, again, let me look here. I think there's actually, no, not every. I think there's a lot of animals on here. I do consider this and the Wild Unknown to be animal decks. Are there cards where there are not animals? Yes, but for the most part, there are animals. And the courts are all based on animals. So this one is beautiful, and I have had a lot of really great experience with this deck. Reading, I got obviously all Wapperjawed, which we'll just work on whilst I talk about it. what I love about this is the white space. I have some really bold Lenormand decks, like my own Lenormand deck, and other ones, as well as Oracle decks that are really rich in color. And I find that they pair so beautifully with this deck because there is rich and vibrant colors in the deck, but there's also a lot of white space that makes that just mesh beautifully with rich Oracle decks. So I have found this to be a deck that really works well in conjunction with other Oracle decks that I have. It just is one of those decks that you say, this is a little bit rough, but it's not as bad as the World Unknown. And again, it's not, well, you know, I say this over and over again. It has nothing to do, I mean, yes, it does have to do with somebody laying dead on the ground with swords in them and how that can affect some people when that card comes up, but it's more the fact that because I don't read strictly Rider-Waite-Smith, that is not the meaning of the card for me. The number 10 is the culminating number of its suit, so the number 10 being the culmination of the suit of the mind, having something dead on the ground, brutally killed. It just doesn't work with the way that I read numerology and the suits. So that's why I harp on it. I know people get annoyed by it, but it is a world in which many decks, the majority of the decks that are beautiful and stunning, are based on Rider-Waite-Smith, so it's something that I have to accept. I do think that with Pip style and non-Rider-Waite-Smith style decks coming a little bit, I think, more popular, I'm really hoping people are going to start doing like Anna is doing with her Abyss Tarot, Anna Torian, who is working on, she's did the artwork for Avalon's deck, but she's also working on her own deck, the Abyss Tarot, and she did alternates for those cards for those that read more numerologically based versus those that read more Rider-Waite-Smith based. And I feel like that's such an amazing gesture. It's 2 cards at most. Usually the 3 and the 10 are of swords are the biggest problem. Sometimes the 9 as well, though I can usually work with the 9 card, the 9 of swords. I feel like that's such a small change to make or addition to really bring in some extra people. So anyways, that's off on a tangent. This deck is so stunning, and it just is, it's clean, it's clear, and it reads just kind of neutral. And I don't mean neutral, it's like the Fountain Tarot. I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean it in actually a really positive way, in that it's just, it's there to do the work. It's not bringing extra emotions or energy. It's got energy, so it's not flat by any means, and neither is the Fountain Tarot. But it just kind of leaves you space for the situation at hand. And I think that that is really something amazing to have in your toolkit as a reader. So big fan of this one as well. And I think that is it. Those are the 4 animal tarots that I have. Actually, I take that back. I have the Tarot Familiars. And there's so much that I love about this, and there's so much that is frustrating, and it's only frustrating because it used pre-existing art, and that's problematic. Very rarely does pre-existing artwork work perfectly in a deck. It is a Pip deck, which is amazing. I have walkthroughs, I believe, of all the ones that I've at least spoke about so far, but look at the Queen of Swords. I need to keep this out and work with this a little bit more, because I actually haven't done a ton of readings with it, and there are some stunning cards in this deck, and I'm a fan of the Pip cards. So look at that. Beautiful. Like the cat, the black cat here telling, or just working a spirit board. So yeah, so this is beautiful Pip style deck. Again, there's a couple things that stand out that you can kind of feel like were maybe kind of images squished into the tarot system, but it's so beautiful, and it's a Pip deck, so I do need to keep this out. So I know inevitably somebody's going to say, well, what's your favorite of your tarot. I don't have a lot of them. There's no question that I would have this one again for that clean clarity. I would never get rid of the Wild Unknown. It has, for me, a very earthy, deep, powerful energy to it. And I would never get rid of the Spirit Song because I think it's so supportive. I think that the animal associated with each of the cards is wonderfully done. I think the keywords are beautifully done. So I just wouldn't get rid of this either. So these three for me are, I wouldn't get rid of them. Again, I do love this. It's just I don't tend to use it that much. And this one either. So if I were to have to pare it down, I wouldn't get rid of either of these three because I love them for different reasons. And that's, of course, why I love having multiple decks for different reasons. So there you have it. If you have a suggestion for an animal tarot, I know there's a new tarot out called the Brady Tarot, and I'm waiting for that to come back where you can purchase it. The Kickstarter is done, and she's made mention on her Instagram. You know, she's kind of wrapping things up with getting things sent out to the Kickstarter, and that will come up for sale again. And I'm probably going to have to get it, even though, again, the 3 and the 10 of Swords are heartbreaking for me. And I wish there was an alternative card for those two. But it's so gorgeous. I'm probably going to have to figure out a way to work with that. So that's the tarot decks. But if you, again, if you have an animal tarot deck that, given what I've just said about those, you think, oh, but you might really like this one, please feel free to put that down in the comments. As you can see, I tend to at least give a really good look at anything that comes out that is strongly animal based, because working with animal energy is a very major part of my own personal practice. So, let's see. So now we're left with a lot of oracle decks. Let me, because I do tend to gravitate, plus there are simply more oracle decks that are animal based. Let's start with the animal spirit. I'm so sorry because I'm going to probably disappoint some people. This is not one of my favorite oracle decks. It is an oracle deck that I have used a lot. So this is the animal spirit by the Wild Unknown. So of course it's by the creator of the Wild Unknown. And the images are, for the most part, gorgeous. There's actually only one image in here that I don't particularly like. It feels like it was not a finished image. I love that bear. And it's the Panther card. It's just kind of like, why? The rest of them to me are so gorgeous. And it just feels like that wasn't, like it was a prototype maybe that needed one more iteration before it was finished. You know, it's not horrible. I mean, could I draw that? And you know, I'm not a sketcher, but so it's not terrible, but it stands out to me, and other people have said the same thing that I know. But I can't tell you, to be honest, why. Again, I use this in conjunction with the Wild Unknown for some readings that I do, that I like to have them to match up, and to have a tarot deck and an animal deck that work well together. So I have used this quite a bit, but I don't ever use it on its own. And on theory, I would think that this would be one that I would really like. It does have suits based on the elements. It does have a hierarchy within those suits, so that makes it more of a system than many oracle decks are. So in theory, this should be one that I really love and work with, but I just don't. It's so beautiful. Maybe it's something that I need to pick up the mass market to get the guidebook with it, and maybe that would unlock it and open it up a little bit more. But I don't need generally guidebooks. I mean, I understand the shark, and all of these I know the energy for, so I don't have any issue with that. There's just something about it. It's not one that I reach for unless I'm using it with the Wild Unknown. So I can't, you know, sometimes we can't, there's no accounting for why something really grabs at you versus another one that does. Sometimes there's just no real good explanation for it. But something about it by itself just goes a little bit flat for me. But I do love to work with it in conjunction of the Wild Unknown. So I'm just being honest. That's kind of that one. And I guess while we're on that vein, we'll wrap up some other ones that I don't really use. This is the Flowers of the Night Oracle. I don't even know if I did a walkthrough. I think I did. I need to leave this one out and work because I do feel like there's something here. It's obviously a Flowers of the Night deck, so technically it's not, but every card has an animal with it, or almost everyone. I think there's a couple, I think, that don't, but the majority of these do have a night animal that goes with it, so I do think of this as a animal deck, even though it's technically a flower deck. I need to work with this some more. I have not done a lot of readings with it, and so I feel like there's something here that I just haven't completely dived into yet. So I think what I'm going to do with this one is leave this one out so that I will pull it a little bit more, and I think it's good going into Samhain and the real thin veil time. So I'm gonna come back to this. I've done walkthroughs of it. There's nothing that's bad about it in any way, shape, or form. I just don't find myself reaching for it, and I just don't think I've given this one a fair chance. So I'm gonna come back to that one. I need to start making some piles here. We talked about this one. I'm leaving some of these newer ones to the side so we can come back to them. This is a stunning deck. So I'm going to have to put this is called the Messenger cards. And I always mess up what the artist's name is, and I'm not entirely sure if this is still in print. This is beautiful. I've gotten so many readings about this. I don't recommend it strictly as like if it's somebody's only animal deck, only because you do have a lot of repeating animals. So whereas most animal type decks will have, you know, a different animal on every card, this isn't the case. You will see multiple ravens and multiple butterflies and things of that nature. So you will see reoccurrence of animals. But there's just something about her artwork that really... I mean, I can just see it looking through this. I mean, there's just something about this deck. I've used this quite a bit, actually, with the Wild Unknown and the Animal Spirit, the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit, for a kind of a trio, 3 voices readings, and I love using those 3 decks together. So there's just something beautiful about this deck. I mean, I can just feel this tugging at my heart. This has been out. I've been kind of working with this again this fall. There's just something about this deck that I just love. I love the squareness. But again, in terms of a strict animal deck that would have like an animal for each deck, this isn't going to do that. It's really more about sort of the messages, and the artwork just is really evocative and really speaks beautifully. So I do really love this deck. Animal Spirits. This is another one that is out on my shelf all the time. And this is by the artwork of Susan Seddon-Boley. And I love this deck also. I pull this a lot of times. There's an animal reading that I do where I pull an animal energy, and then I pull one with a tarot card for each of the 4 elements. But then there's an overarching animal energy that I often will use this for. These are the knowledge cards, so they do have the information on the back of them, but that doesn't really bother me. The way that I shuffle, and then this is how I split. And so that works perfectly fine for me. There you go. There's a split. There's the animal, the gorgeous fox. So these are from her artwork, which is beautiful. There are humans in some of the images where you'll see a lot of transformative, a lot of shape-shifting feeling energy, that you'll feel a lot of shape-shiftery type energy from some of the cards. But I do consider this to be an amazing animal deck, and especially if I'm just kind of pulling one for sort of, this feels a little bit more where a lot of decks for me are about animal guardian energy, which this does it all as well, but this has sort of a feeling of a step closer maybe to deity than than some. There's something about this, and I think it's because her artwork. I have her goddess deck as well, and I also have her book called Shamans. Her artwork, Susan Seddon Boulez's artwork, speaks to my soul. It just really speaks to me. I have an image of a girl in a tree that she painted on my personal altar space. She just makes me well up just looking at her artwork. So there's something extra about her decks. I really just wish that this company would produce a deck taking, because she has male images, many shamanic male images, and we have a goddess deck, we have this deck, and then we have the the shaman's book has so many images that I wish they would create a gods deck so that it could just all be blended together. And I have a video where I tried to do that. I tried to take some of the images. I bought 2 of her shaman's books and cut out a bunch of male images to balance things out, but it won't shuffle right because it's different card stocks, and so it always splits on a added card, and so it's not workable, which breaks my heart. But Miss Veronica's doing something, blending a deck for me in some way, and I don't know what it is, but that makes me excited. So yeah, love this. This is always out. I never have this put away. Okay, I know this is going to probably be far, but you know, people can skip through it. People can skip through it. This is the Druid Animal deck by Philip and Stephanie Cargum, and illustrations by my beloved Bill Worthington. I don't use this deck a lot, and I don't know why. I think I actually know why. There's also the herbal deck, and they mixed together. They're beautiful. These are all animals that are kind of aligned with and come from Druidic, Celtic lore and things of that nature. But I have a Will Worthington collection. I have all of Will Worthington's decks, and I keep them all together in a cubicle in my entertainment center as a collection, and I think that's the problem. I think because I have it separated off, I don't use it as much as I should. So I probably need to change that. I do wish there were more cards. This has 33 cards, whereas if you look at some of the newer decks, this is a 68 card. This is a 51 card. I feel like 30, right around the 30 decks that just have about 30 cards are pushing it for me to being not as usable. I do think having a good chunk of cards to pull from expands obviously the capability of the reading, and so I tend to like, that tends to be why I think a lot of people, and I also like to mix this with the Druid plant oracle deck. But it's a beautiful, beautiful deck, especially if you are interested in Druidic path or the Celtic path as well. This really does pull from Celtic traditions in a very powerful way and works beautifully for that. So I think the reason I don't use this as much is A, because it's a smaller deck, but also because I have it put away with my collection of Will Worthington, and that kind of sets it apart. But it's beautiful. This one I think is still very easy to find. I think the plant one is more difficult to find in the United States, but I feel like you can still get the Druid Animal one. This is actually a set of runes that my daughter got me from Ted Andrews. Now, Ted Andrews is somebody who writes a lot about animal guardian energy. This is one of his just pocket books that I like to have around, even though I think I have his full book in my Kindle. And just while we're talking about this, I guess, I also like to have that around when I use this beautiful deck. So this is a combination of decks from the National Geographic. Has these playing card decks that are this beautiful matte cardstock. This is amazing animals. There's also an amazing sea animals, I think, or water animals. And so this is a combination of, I think, from those two decks. Or maybe there's a birds, a water, and then animals. I'm not sure, but I've kind of gone through because there were multiples of the same ones, and I've made about an 80 card deck using those decks. And this is fantastic. I use this for myself quite a bit, and I tend to keep this with it just because it has so many animals in here. I think this has 290 just kind of quick, you know, because it's not an animal that you use a lot, because this is a 82 card deck. Sometimes a deck animal will come up, it's like, okay, that's not an energy I worked a lot with. I often, almost always, can find it in here, and so I tend to keep these two together. But this is by the same creator, so that's kind of, again, I use multiple decks, but it's gorgeous, matte, thick, like Oracle deck cardstock. It really wouldn't shuffle very well, in my opinion, as a playing card deck, but it does as that. So that's one that I have and I love. But my daughter got this one from me, and this has, so it's the Animal Speak runes. So again, his great information here. This is 40 runes. So they are wood runes, blank on one side, and it has mostly animals. There are a couple that don't, but it doesn't say that. It says hummingbird on the bottom and then dreams on the top. This is just about migration. There are a couple that aren't specific animals. So there's horse for movement, woodpecker for a new rhythm, a blue jay for choice. I haven't done a walkthrough of this yet. Crocodile to trust yourself, which is kind of interesting. I kind of work with crocodile in a different way. Mating, so there's mating, migration. So these are little runes. I need to probably do a walkthrough of these. I have pulled and done some readings for myself with them and really enjoyed them, but I haven't done a ton of work with them. So that was a nice little gift from my daughter. Back in here. We're getting lower in the pile, put these over here out of the way. This is the Dreamtime reading cards. Now, this is called Connect with the Ancient Spirit and Nature of Australia by Laura Bowen. Now, I wouldn't say that this is, it's not per se, it doesn't say animal deck. However, I do consider it to be part of my kind of animal. There are a lot of animals in here. The sugar glider, mullet, they have the ocean in general, the spider, the mountain, a walkabout, but there are lots: eagle, sea turtle, red-bellied black snake, firefly, native bees, fig trees. So there are not all of them, but there is a lot of animals in this deck. So I do kind of consider this to be a bit of an Australian animal deck, and it's really beautiful. I think that the artist has done an amazing job capturing the energy of her culture and her land, and it really resonates. And I love the keywords. I think work really well, and just in terms of as a reading deck, I think it's a fantastic reading deck. She has an oceany one, I know, which may not be on here because it was probably not out when this one was released, but she has one based on water animals and energy, and I feel like maybe she has a third one, but I could be wrong. But I really love this, and again, it's not strictly an animal deck, but when I think of my animal deck collections, I do think of this because there are so many beautiful and interesting. I love the sugar glider. When that one comes up, it's come up in some interesting readings. So I think that, and I love her artwork. She's got a fantastic Instagram page as well. So I really love this deck. Okay. Okay, we're getting down. Winged Enchantment, if you watch my channel, if you participate in my live chats, you will know that what I love about this deck, now, and again, please don't take this the wrong way. I think Lisa Hunt is an amazing artist, so I am not taking anything, I'm not attempting to take anything away from her beautiful artwork. But for me, the beauty or what the power of this deck, which is all winged animals, it's called Winged Enchantment, so it's all birds. But the Leslie Morrison, who wrote this guidebook, which I have literally bled on, I don't remember how, I cut my finger or something, and I've literally bled on these pages. But when I use one of these deck cards, and I never pull 3, I always just pull 1, I will read these, and even if it's just for myself, I will read them out loud. There is something about her writing and the way that the affirmative, but in this powerful way, that you literally do feel like you're calling on the energy of that bird. You are like calling it forth in a very powerful way. So while I think this deck is beautiful just for the images, the real gem is, for me, the Little White Book by Leslie Morrison. So again, that's all birds. I need to see if Leslie Morrison has done any other decks. The thing I do not like about this deck is that it's very hard. That was better than sometimes. It can be a pain in the butt to get. It's just a little bit too tight. That doesn't have the good middle flap, so cards get stuck. You know, mass market deck people, you know, put the fold in the middle if you can, but little pet peeves, little pet peeves. These are 2 decks that I absolutely love having in my collection, but I don't use them a whole lot. This is called the Wolfpack Tarot that was sent to me, and because I love wolves, and you know I do, and I love this. I've actually done some great readings with it, and at first it wasn't really working because it has this fantastic, for a collection, it just makes me so happy because it has this very cartomancy to some of them, where it'd be like something's going to happen in 3 months. There's going to be severe turbulence in the next 8 days. Like there's these very specific, it feels like old style cartomancy to some of the things that it makes me happy. But because of such specifics in it, I don't tend to use this a lot. However, at first I was like not really kind of speaking to me too much. And then when I realized there are actually significator cards in here. And so when I started to shuffle, and then find the alpha male or the alpha female, and look at the card on either side, I started to get really great messages from it. So I have worked with it, and I do enjoy it, but it does have more, again, if you're going to follow the messages, and I think it says tarot, but it's definitely not tarot. There's not even 78 cards in it. Well, it says 78. To me, this really doesn't have anything to do with tarot. It's an oracle deck, but it's got a cool vibe to it. So I think that if you like cartomancy style things, you might really enjoy this. The art's beautiful. It's like sketched art, all on wolves. So this is a treasure in my collection, but it's not something that I use a lot. But I do love having it. And then this is the Beasts of Albion, which I don't know if you can get anymore. This was, I think, a trade. By Miranda Gray. My goal is I need to sit down and read the guidebook, and I just get distracted by something else. So I haven't done a walkthrough of this, and I haven't really used it that much. I have used it, but I haven't used it that much. And I think it's just the art style, maybe. It's just kind of bold, and all of these are different suits that are there. So it's lovely, but in terms of and I love having it because it is ancient Britain, which kind of falls into some of the myths and the lores, Celtic myths and lore. And so it's, by all means, should be one that I really work with. It kind of has the feel in terms of animal types as the Druid Animal Oracle, but you do get a little bit more, I think, with this one. This one has 39. It's still a little bit of a thinner deck. But it's one that I keep telling myself eventually I'm going to sit down. I do love dragons. Because I do believe in dragons. So it's a beautiful one. I just need to sit down and read the book and kind of figure out the suits and everything, because I feel like there's definitely something there. I know I've had people ask about trading this one. I think so. That's why I think it might be hard to find, and I haven't been able to give it up because I feel like there's something there. I just need to sit down. It looks like a really great book, and what I've read of it looks like a good book, given that I love this mythology. So there's that one. Okay, so almost done, folks. Almost done if you've made it this far. So these, up until these two decks, which recently came up, we've done a lot of talking about these in live chat. People are really trying to decide on these decks. Up until these decks came up, in terms of Oracle decks, this was my favorite, just to use as a regular Oracle deck. This is called The Secret Language of Animals by Chip Richards. And the artwork is by Jimmy Manton, which I love his artwork. So I just think there's a real richness of color. There's a real power to the imagery. I like that it just has keywords on it versus phrases. I think oracles, for me, often get in trouble. Don't always work well just when they put phrases on it. So and this is personal preference. Some people are the opposite and love to have oracle decks with phrases on it. So this is not a fault of other oracle decks. It's just what I have found for myself, that I really prefer decks that have the title or the name of the animal here, and then some keywords that I can run away with on my own phrases, depending on the question or the situation. So I love this. There is a very masculine feel to this, and this is one of the things that I like about this deck, is in a realm of decks that very often lean in oracle decks that very often feel very feminine. This has a very solid earthy and almost a masculine feel to it, probably just maybe because of the artwork style or the color tones, but it has a really solid feel to it, and it is one of my top oracle decks, animal oracle decks, and it's one that I often recommend when people ask me, if they're just going to get one animal oracle deck. This is one that I will often bring up. I have to add this one now. Currently, the reigning favorite animal oracle deck for me is the Spirit of the Animal Oracle by Jody Bergsma, purely because of her artwork. I am a huge fan of Judy Bergsma's artwork. I have a walkthrough of this. Now, I wish that it just said Moose and Wisdom. I wish all of this text wasn't here. So this is not a perfect deck, where this is pretty much perfect. The imagery is gorgeous. The names and the keywords are perfect. Like, this is about perfect. I don't like oracle decks with a chunk of text there. So I really do wish that just the Orca Whale and Adventure was there and not all of this. However, that being said, let me make a suggestion if that also irks you. I have found that if I let go of the irksomeness of that, that very often single words will pop to the forefront when I'm doing a reading for a client or for myself. While I may not sit there and read the whole statement, something might, like let's say this one, the lion is they're having his higher calling, but the word courage here might pop out. Just that word will just zip out at me. Or reclaim might, so I would think, okay, you need to reclaim your power and your authority that you think of with lions, right? And so I will say that if you don't allow yourself to focus on the words, try that sometime, because there's a couple decks. The Guardian Angel Tarot also is similar to that, in that while normally chunks of text like this bother me, if I just stop letting it bother me and focus on the beautiful artwork, certain things come popping up at me, like for that specific reading that might be different the next time, where dreams might pop up, or purpose might pop up, or unlimited might pop up, and it adds beautiful layer to the reading. And so her artwork is so gorgeous. That right now, this is gorgeous. Gorgeous squirrel. It's just, right now, this is my reigning favorite. Although I also love this one, which I'm going to talk, I mean, look at. She obviously goes with, she watercolor paints, but she's going a little, and I like that there's a cat and a dog. She goes for a little more realistic. Obviously, it's not photorealism, but you do have a realistic bent to the animals here that I actually really love and really lean into. Love that. So I'm just a huge, huge fan. These I was using, and obviously flip them up. I also do like that she put a personal choice card that came in, and her thought was you can never make an animal deck that has every animal that somebody wanted to be in a deck. And so if this card comes up, close your eyes, she says, and what is the animal that comes and steps out of this forest for you? Maybe that's your animal totem that's not in this deck. Maybe that's just a particular, you might just close your eyes and have some animal. It may even be an animal that's in the deck. It doesn't really matter. But when this comes out, it's just a chance for you to really go inward and see what animal is going to step out of the forest for you. I've actually had some really beautiful experiences with that. And so I'm a big fan of that card. So I'm just massively in love with this deck. So personally, I don't think you can go wrong having both of these decks. Because these would probably be my two favorite animal decks. But then if you want that sense of divinity and kind of stepping into, this for me feels more shape-shiftery, like you're meeting the gods or goddesses of those animals, or so. I don't know. There's something a little bit like different. It's a different kind of energy. So those are definitely my top three. But I will say that I like this much more than I thought when I saw the, and this is, again, I've got walkthroughs, so I don't want to, kind of redo the whole thing. This deck has been reading beautifully for me. If you have and love the shamanic, shoot, I can't see it because I've got another pile of shamanic decks. So mystical shaman deck, if you love that deck the way I do, and I do love that deck, just for the pure artwork, and even the names and the titles, I just kind of go with it on my own. I love that deck. And if you love that deck, you might want to give this one a try, because they work beautifully together. My only quibble on this is that I so love Jenna's artwork. I mean, I'm beyond in love with the color tones, the matte cardstock. The only thing, I mean, look at that, is these jewels and draperies on, and earrings and hats on the deck are, I was disappointed when I saw those, because the ones that don't have it, you can just see where there's no need for it. Like, her artwork is so beautiful that I just feel like there's no need for it. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at that. Her artwork is stunning. So when I first saw the kind of bedazzlement, I was disappointed. I also am not a big fan of phrases on decks. That can irk me. But that being said, you know, always take those things as suggestions. There's nothing on a deck that has that says that you have to go with that. I just go with my own understanding of, I love this though. This is Wilbur. I have a deck with the animal spirit of Wilbur from Charlotte's Web, and that makes me so happy that I can't even tell you. So, and I love this card. So I've actually used this deck for quite a few readings in conjunction with the Mystical Shaman, and I love it. You know, still, I would have loved it to have been in the vein. This has a little bit more of the whimsy of previous decks before the Mystical Shaman, and I wish that it just didn't have it so that it could go so perfection with the actual Mystical Shaman, but you know, their purpose, I understand, was to remind you that they're not talking about the hummingbird that you might meet in the forest or in your bird feeder, that this is the pure essence of that. It's almost like these are all the aces of the animals. This is that idea of once upon a time in the forest that begat all of the forest. This was the original canary spirit, that kind of, some of them are just, I love that one. So if that is kind of bothering you, but you're still on the fence, I don't know. I would give it a shot maybe, because I've had some amazing readings. I've been using it with clients, again, along with the Mystical Shaman together, and I have been really loving this deck. So this is not a deck that I wouldn't get rid of any of my animal decks. They're my collection. But if I was culling my animals decks down, this is not one that I would get rid of. I would keep all 4 of these for sure. I would also have to keep this one. And this one, no, and this one, yeah. These are the ones I would definitely not get rid of, at least as things stand right now. I would have, I would have all of these. But there you go. I know that's a lot of decks. Again, if it's a good looking animal deck, I tend to just give it a shot to see how it's going to be. But my top, these are the ones I'm using the most, actually, are these 2 right now. But I absolutely love this. And again, I've already talked about that. So I would say these are my top 4. And I still wouldn't, again, there's a bunch I wouldn't get rid of. But in terms of how much I use them, these are definitely my top ones. Right now, I'm using these 2 all the time. And if I had to pick, if I was forced by you horrible people to pick one, I would keep this one. It would be so hard. I would have to keep 2, and then I would never give that one up. So I'd have to keep those 3, and then why should I not give this one? So why do people try to have you pick your tops anyways? Because you can love all the different decks for the different reasons. So I'm going to stop there. I hope this helps in some way. I know there are people who are interested in getting animal decks and just not sure, which one out of all the ones. There are, you can find reasons for each one. And everybody's going to have different aesthetics that please them, different reasons why they want to use the decks. So there's a lot of different reasons why you might pick one deck over another. But I will say, of my collection, these are the most used. I will say I use the Spirit Animal Wild Unknown a lot because that was the one that I had to go with a tarot deck. So I've used that a lot as well. But in terms of the Oracle decks, these are certainly my most used currently. I use these in a lot of different readings. So hope that helps. Have an absolutely wonderful day.